we will go through the agenda, the order in which they appear. All communications have been posted. And we have 2 items on our consent agenda. So we'll start with ZP 24-335 149 Bowman Avenue. We have the, you wanna come up here? So this is recommended for consent. Do you have any questions or concerns with the staff report? Okay, does anyone on the board oppose this being treated as a consent item? Okay, can I have a motion?
Yes.
Fair point, thank you. Is anyone here from the public wishing to speak on this matter?
If you're online and want to speak to this, just raise your hand. Wait, we have a few folks with their hands.
Okay, hearing none.
Okay, make a motion. On ZP 24-335, which is 149 Beaumont Avenue, I move that we adopt staff's findings and those conditions and approve the application.
I'll second that.
Second, all those in favor?
Who was the second? I'm sorry. Thanks, Liam.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. Thank you. Our second item on consent is ZP 24-285 362 South Union Street. Do we have this one? You could join us up here. And have you had a chance to review staff's
Yes.
report? Do you have any questions or concerns? No. Does anyone on the board object to this being handled as a consent item?
I'm gonna recuse myself from this item because I'm a neighbor
Okay.
to my neighborhood.
And does anyone in the public want to speak on this item?
See any hands raised, Gabe?
Okay.
I'll make a motion too. On 362 South Union Street, which is ZP 24-285, I move that we approve staff's findings and conditions and the applications.
All those in favor? Great. You're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we will now move into our public hearing. The first item on our public hearing is CP 24-316 75 Cherry Street. It's in the lobby. That's the end of your up.
Yeah, nice. That's quick. Hey.
All right, so next item on our agenda, ZP 24-285 362 South Union. Nope, wrong one. ZP 24-316 75 Cherry Street, City Place Partners. Proposed revision in north building, including expansion of level 10, addition of a level 11 and balconies. So BJ, I need to make a disclosure that I represented a prior owner who was involved in the early stage of this project, but no longer involved, and we'd like to do it in an objective manner in this case. And I'll say that one of my partners did one of the development agreements related to this project, but has no problem in this now, so I think.
Recording in progress.
Or maybe myself, sorry.
Yeah, you want to. You can turn off the phone.
And your speakers.
We can see this.
So do you want to do that?
Yes, that would be helpful. And
I'll promote you to panel this, I'm sure. You didn't mind.
So. Can I get you to raise your right hand? If anybody wants to be heard on this application? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is true and correct and pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes,
So it seems like, well, why don't you just tell us what you want?
sure. Let me just share my screen and have some graphics to go along with the words. So everybody's familiar with the site, I think. And we've been here a few times, and here's why we're here. So we've got a before and after of the north building there. We've got larger images of those that we can also share. There we go, maybe it'll make it a little bigger. But you can see that we had a level 10 that was stepped back 10 feet from the facade below, and we brought that out. So it's approximately in the same plane, it's a few inches difference in plane from the level below. That was a large structural cost savings, as well as more square footage to rent out and more apartments to provide. And we've added a level 11 small penthouse, which contains 2 units and some storage space to service what's planned to be a large solar array and a permit required green roof up there. That's a state stormwater permit that's requiring that not. So we've also added balconies to the north building. So basically there are some changes there above the by right height, meaning that to a level 11 and some of these balconies, and that is why we're here. You also notice probably that the colors have changed. That's not something that we need to talk to you about, but we're sharing the current renderings. And that's really all that's changed. We've already also changed the west wing of this north building from a housing project that was going to be a collaboration with CHT to a hotel. And that's really what's changed. And we've got plans to share if need be, and we've also made a lot of progress. So that picture at the top left is from this morning. So the south building is well underway and towards occupancy in March.
Okay, questions from the DRB? I know we've seen this a few times.
And just remind me, that south building is what's called phase 1A on your map.
Exactly, and the north building is 1B.
Gotcha.
There are some discrepancies between the square footage in the hotel section of the building between the zoning drawings and the presentation. Some of them are pretty substantial. I was wondering, are the zoning drawings more so like one example on level 5, there's 315 in the zoning drawings, there's 306, and then in the corner, there's like 4,000 square feet for one of the corner units. Is that, I'm guessing the zoning drawings are correct, but it was surprising to see that many discrepancies between the two.
I'd have to look at the specific documents to tell you where that's coming from. What generally I would think that this discrepancy would be is actual hotel rooms versus the hotel with allocations of service spaces. That might explain it, and there's also hotel in both the north and south buildings. So
And you're looking at the zoning drawings posted, right, to our.
So the zoning drawings have one set of dimensions for the hotel, but the presentation deck has a separate set of dimensions for those same hotel rooms on the same floors. So like level 5 on the south side of that hotel building, it's like 4,236 square feet, 315, 301, 352, and then in the zoning drawings, it's like 498, 306, 293, 342 for that same hotel on level 5.
I mean, there's a step back that occurs at level 5, there's a demising between residential and hotel use that occurs on every floor.
I think the question though, Evan, if I'm getting this right,
Yeah.
right?
Is which is accurate.
Right, because we're approving it subject to a set of plans, and if the plans conflict, we need to know which plans are the ones that are.
Yeah.
So if I'm following through, right, so if I'm on the zoning plans, right, zoning drawings. And we look at overall plan level 5, that's where you're looking?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a discrepancy on the hotel side, which is pink.
Between level 5 on the zoning plans and level 5 in the presentation.
We just put that picture. It's clearly not 4,236 square foot.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, if you guys could identify for us, right, if I see this, it says 7/9/24 and 7/19/24, it sounds to me like if you look on your what's been posted, the zoning drawings are later in time drawings, perhaps the more the ones that we want to specifically approve, but I think you need to confirm that for us.
I would say it's fine to approve the zoning drawings as submitted as opposed to the presentation deck.
Okay.
And the other thing that we did note in our zoning checklist is that some of the square footages are, could still vary as construction progresses and as documents progress. The construction documents for the project aren't yet complete. So, I mean, there's a foundation in place, there's a container we've got to work within. The building size total is what's shown here on this slide. It's gonna be about 747,200 square feet, give or take. And how it's devised between the uses is not going to change by much from what's in those formal zoning drawings. But there is borrowing of support spaces between the uses and how it's allocated or where the demising between these two uses falls is not yet completely set in stone. But we will, and the discussion we've had with the zoning office is that we'll continue to keep square footages updated because there's impact fee implications, everything like that. And we have been keeping our square footages up to date as we move through the process.
Any other questions from the board?
I've got just a couple, I think. Can you walk me through sort of the total height change? So you're currently approved for, no, it was originally approved for 14 stories. You were at 9 before this with a small 10th floor. You're now at sort of a fully framed 10th floor and a small 11th floor. So
So there's another thing that kind of throws a loop or throws a wrench in the works, and that is that we were asked to renumber our floors by the fire marshal. So the original building was 9 floors with a large 10th floor mechanical penthouse. The last time we were here, we changed that 10th floor mechanical penthouse using the current numbering system, that 10th floor to a occupied floor. Now we have a very small, I believe it's 3,500 square feet, give or take, penthouse on top of that. Because we still need an elevator to go to the roof so that we can have space to maintain the green solar panels. And because we have the elevator going up there, we put 2 apartments in that, but I think it's a less than 13-foot change in the total height. And it is an occupied floor, so the height is measured to the top of that occupied floor. It's got it.
Okay, got it. And then, I don't know, Mary or Scott, your project. Trying to understand the active public space and restroom, I know we talked about this in the past, but our allowance to authorize above a certain level in height is dependent on providing those services.
Correct.
It's either this rooftop space or the publicly accessible.
Some
Bathrooms.
publicly accessible rooftop space.
Okay.
Which we've heard repeatedly is uninsurable from the property owner's perspective. The other, it can be in combination with or public restrooms. And that's based on a ratio. They have identified known spaces that will be particularly signed for public restrooms. And on one floor, and is it the first or second floor, that hasn't been specifically defined because the floor plates haven't been defined where that public restroom is. But you have committed to providing the square footage that's required to meet the requirement for public restrooms.
Yeah, we have
them all located.
We have them all located now at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't think
We
they
have
were all
3 out of
located at the
4.
time we submitted
Yes.
for this permit. Actually, it is true, there is one that still has to be settled because we're doing the east parking entrance from St. Paul Street.
Yes.
The west pedestrian parking entrance from Pine Street, and the third spot would be the north hotel lobby.
Yeah, we have the restroom in the hotel lobby shall be provided to us when discerned.
Yeah.
Because at the time of submission, it wasn't clear.
We still don't have a brand for the north hotel. That's what the lobby design would have.
But you have met the 314 square feet of public restrooms that would be a requirement for the additional height.
Right.
So that's rooftop space or public restroom
Or a combination,
or combination?
but because the rooftop space just isn't something that they can cap as an owner, it's the public restrooms.
You wouldn't like the looks of it.
Yeah.
It looked like a little jail on the roof. Razor wire.
There is a rooftop deck now though on what you're proposing, it's just that it's private, that's why it's insured.
Yeah,
Well, it's set back to.
it's set back, it has a railing. It does come up pretty close to the edge of the roof. But it is private and not public.
Will the publicly available restrooms be maintained by a building owner or hotel owner or?
Well, they're all the same. Building owner is hotel owner.
Okay.
I'm slightly confused by the math, Mary. I don't know if you could clarify, but the rooftop space was required at 341 or 3,413 square feet. And then the public restroom is 314 at a ratio of 10:1. That would only make up for, is it an addition to, so like I would think it would be 341 square feet of public restroom space, not 314 at a ratio of 10:1.
So that ratio of 20 square feet per 1,000 over the 85-foot height.
Oh, okay.
But it's basically the amount of square footage over 85.
Yeah, but so that requires 3,413 square feet of roof terrace space, right? So that would,
And or street level public restrooms.
but at 10:1, the public restrooms would be 341, right? Not 314.
Yeah, it looks like I understand 3,413 divided by 10 is 3.1, not 14.
Yeah. I'm just curious if there's any other.
Sure, it seems like the math is a short explanation.
Yeah.
I will admit to you that it may be my typing, I'm not more dyslexia, but I will confirm with the submission materials and can assure that if conditioned, I will make sure it meets that standard.
That's all I have.
We need 30 more square feet. We'll grow that. 29.
Maybe my typing.
Anybody in the audience here to speak on this?
You're on Zoom, raise your hand. So we have a number of folks on Zoom, but nobody's raising their hand, AJ.
All right. Any questions from the board? Like that, with that, I will close the public hearing on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda. Whoa. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Is 52 Marble Avenue, Suzanne Evelyn?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
And this is the appeal of an administrative denial, application to replace previously existing shed that was removed. And can I get you and anyone else who wants to speak on this application to raise their right hands? Yeah. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct and the claims and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Okay, so this is an appeal of a denial. In these cases, we often ask the city to speak first and identify the basis for their denial and the reasoning. So this is a Garrett project, so Garrett, if you would.
Yes. So to start with some background, this application was a follow-up to a previous zoning permit, ZP 23-145, which was the permit to remove the existing non-conforming shed. It was non-conforming for side, rear yard setbacks and lot coverage. And there was a condition in that permit that within 1 year of approval, a complete zoning permit needed to be filed in order to receive the non-conformity of that shed. So that was approved May 1st, 2023. And then the new permit, which was denied, which the appeal is for, came in April 25th and was not made complete until June 20th. So the new, because it did not make that 1 year timeline for a complete application, it was reviewed as any other application under the standard zoning standards for that district. And so it did not comply with side, rear yard setbacks or lot coverage, so it was denied August 1st. In the appeal, the appellant asserts that the proposed shed should be allowed to retain the nonconformity of the previous shed due to the submission coming in within the deadline, even though it was not complete within the deadline as stated in the previous zoning permit condition. It also notes that there is an Article 5 standard relating to demolition, but that's mostly mute under Section 12.2.5. And because there was a condition in the previous permit that explicitly stated that a complete application needed to come in within a year. That previous permit was Scott, so if he wants to speak on that, I would also suggest you ask him about that.
Okay. And
Yeah,
my questions.
on what date was the appellant able to submit payment? Am I right in the way the online platform works is they can't even submit payment until you have put an amount in there?
So the first payment
May 13th, right?
was May 13th, correct?
A big piece that the board needs to decide, as I perceive it, is it's a little late the same as Paul Lake. So said another way, we had the application come in. Wasn't made complete in terms of materials until what was it, May 7th or something.
Yeah, May 7th.
Billing wasn't made available until after that. But then it wasn't actually paid until June 20th or so.
June 20th, which is after.
So I looked for parallels in the board's history on appeal, and the closest I could find was something with respect to number of units in a non-conforming property. basically the city recognized a non-conforming unit count, I think it's 6 and it was 5. And said, it's a non-conforming percent, that should be okay. So similar principle, but not entirely the same. But yeah, she wasn't built until 13.
I think this was down to protocol as to whether administratively complete permit doesn't start until the fee is accepted, because if there's other permits out there where someone makes a decision, your application is complete, please send the application check. So I think the clock should start ticking. I don't know whether it's the application submitted and received, but I don't think the receipt of the check should be when the application is deemed complete, because checks get lost, banks, you know, get online banking, sometimes it's 10 days before they get the check. So I think that the check receipt should not be a factor when
Well, this is, it's relatively explicit in the code, in the ordinance, so. Well,
So I know.
I agree with you on what.
Yes. I'm just saying
Yeah.
my opinion on this matter, whether it meets the code, the CEO or not, I don't.
Can I just ask about the sequence of, so she submitted on April 25th. Looks like she submitted a zoning and a building permit. Correct. She attached everything that was required in the fee for the application to be complete, except she attached it in the wrong place.
To the building.
So staff moved materials from the building permit over to the zoning. Then when that was done, then you issued within a week, you can pay for your application. Is that sort of the sequence?
Yes.
And was she advised at any point that between April 25th and May 13th, that her application was not complete, or that something else was still pending that she needed to do?
I believe the first communication that the fee was available was May 13th.
And there's no mechanism under the new permit system for somebody to just pay when they file the application.
Correct. When the fee step has to be activated by an administrator.
Because it's out of their control. Right. So like in the old days, you would have a permit fee schedule, go in and drop off a check with the application. Where at least one Act 250 vested rights case I can think of, where the failure to attach the fee made the application incomplete. But that was when there was a clear fee application procedure. You just did, 62 cents times whatever, $1,000, I'm getting the numbers wrong, of proposed construction, and that would be the fee. You drop it off with the application, and then there'd be a true up after construction is completed that match the numbers. But we don't have that mechanism here, right? I can't, if I wanted to go build a house, I can't drop off a check with my application.
Once the application is approved,
But
it builds on an estimate still. But it
Yeah,
doesn't-
but it's not like when I go in and file it, I say, and I'm gonna estimate it's $500,000 in construction costs, here's the check. It's a different mechanism, right, Garrett? Do I have that right?
I believe so. I know you can pay in person or by mail. But typically we send out the amount that's due.
Does the system send out any reminders or notifications after the initial payment can be paid? I'm just out of curiosity.
So staff sent after May 13th, on both May 29th and June 12th. Through messages and a phone call, staff reached out for prompting payment of the fee.
But it wouldn't have mattered, right? Because if it was May 1st, under any calculation, unless the fee was paid before May 1st, right? I mean, the argument, because a day late is effectively late, right? Unless the fee was paid before May 1st, it kind of doesn't matter when staff reached out or someone didn't reach out. It's just that fee wasn't paid before May first, which would make the application complete, right?
Correct.
If there was a missing element to the application, but the fee had been paid, like for example, it was missing a site. Do you think your conclusion would have been the same?
Yeah, so anything that was missing from the required submission information would have deemed the application incomplete. So whether that be uploads, site plans, drawings, material details, payment of the fee, any of that would be included in a complete submission. So if any of that was missing, the application would still be incomplete.
So the other thing on the timeline that I had questions about for you, Garrett, is that, at a certain point, the application was denied purely because of non-payment. Is there a standard somewhere? Is that a reference in the code of how many days after application there are before payment must be submit?
Yes, in Article 3, there's a standard that administrators have a certain number of days to act on an application. And typically, fee is not paid within a certain amount of time. We don't just leave applications open. So that's why it was initially denied as incomplete. Those are administrative denials. With the payment of that, right, so it got denied, we saw the payment. We typically accept that as basically an appeal. Say, okay, it's been a day. So your payment came in right after you got notice of the denial. We'll undo that and review it.
So once it was paid, then you reverse the denial, right? And then open the administration again. So then the only issue left is the non-conformity
Yeah.
part.
Let me ask one question about the zoning ordinance, this section 535B demolition. I understand the finality argument and that may be conclusive here, but it does seem like the zoning permit sort of unilaterally changed the requirement in the zoning ordinance. So the zoning ordinance gives people a year from the date of demolition to file a complete application. But this permit set a different time frame.
1 year from the approval date of the document.
So
Which is obviously not the date of demolition.
it looks like there's wording truncated in the staff report that got posted. Punchline here is that Article 5 actually has different standards for replacement of non-conforming structures. It should be cleaned up, but it's not there yet. So, yes, the zoning permit condition varies from the section cited by the appellant.
What do the other sections of section 5 say?
I'm looking at the approval right now.
Okay, take a peek.
Yeah, so demolition, zoning permit application for existing structure shall be completed within 1 year of demolition of the non-conforming structure.
Even with that, the fee was not paid until after 1 year. Even if that is the cited section. Because the 1 year would have been June 1st, 2024.
Still the same problem.
Same problem, right?
Okay.
Want to add anything?
Well,
Feel free.
the first thing, I hope I don't forget anything. The first thing is the May 7th transfer of documents from the building permit to the zoning permit. Joseph was helpful before that, and we had, I think it was a conversation on the phone, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna move them over. And that would have been before May 1st. And then at some later point, he was like, hey, where are these? And I was like, oh, remember you said you were gonna move them over. So that May 7th and is, I mean, I don't have super clear recollection. I mean, it was craziness because I thought I had put in a complete zoning application. I didn't, or, you know, a zoning application with all the stuff.
Right.
And then it was like, oh no, you need more, you know, elevations and materials and all this kind of stuff, which I just didn't think I needed that. So that's where I write that I took a day out from work and went down to Livingston Sheds and got, you know, more stuff. And then,
So when you uploaded that more stuff, that the stuff you uploaded to the wrong file?
I think so.
Yeah.
I believe so. You know, it's just, I mean, even still, even today I got, you know, notice of an inspection and it's like I gotta click through, but then it takes me to the main page instead of where I think I'm logging in and it was just a little cumbersome. But, and then, I never got a phone call. The first that I heard of a phone call was in their response. I don't think I missed it. I mean, I've got a cell phone like everybody else and, so, and then my argument about like, okay, the 1 year from demolition was really to just point out that, okay, if you're counting days, 20 days would have been okay if you send me a email saying that's more than 20 days from the first one. Following me from the. If you count,
Leslie,
what's that?
it's Leslie, is that your?
Well, yeah, because if you send me an email on the 13th and then again on the 20-something, if you count from June 1st, June 20th would have been in between those two dates. That's all I was trying to say. But really, you know, if I prefer to pay by check, it's just easier for bookkeeping and record keeping and taxes and all this kind of stuff. And so, you know, as I say, I wrote a check. It's just crazy. Tenant turnovers, end of school, life's busy, you know, stuff. But honestly, I think if somebody would have said, your application's not complete, you need to complete your application by, you know, I'm losing my days here. May 2nd, May 20th, May whatever. I mean, I would have moved heaven and earth to get it here. None of the communications, which I think Garrett referred to 3, but I think I only have 2, is it just said your fee is available for payment. But that doesn't say to me it's due. And as I point out, you know, most bills say, hey, you've got 30 days, we're gonna charge interest, or it's due on the, you know, you get your electric bill. And so, and then honestly, I got back from the camping trip, which was this thing because my friend's having surgery and her boys are best friends and blah, blah, blah. Though they live in Southern Vermont. And like, I got back and I'm like, all right, I know this is due. I don't have time, you know, I'm not gonna write a check. I'm exhausted. I'm not gonna drive down. I literally woke up and paid. And then I saw the email that it had been denied like an hour before. So, I mean, you know, I'm just trying to have a shed so that tenants can put, you know, bikes and a lawnmower and whatever. The building dates from, it says 1899, I think on the tax report, but I think it's actually earlier than that. I think it's like 1870. And so from that back porch, there's a door because they did renovations, but down the original basement stairs. And it's like literally this wide stairs that are just planks and you have to duck your head, and half the basement is still full of old clay, cause it's all clay soil there, they didn't dig the water main, just dug it's kind of cool, actually, I love old buildings. There's nowhere to put that stuff. You know, the porch is an open porch. You know, it's kind of not livable, and literally to put a shed in that, to meet the setbacks would put it in the middle of the backyard. I mean, it would just be weird. If I could even do it. You know, I mean, I don't know if I could do it. It was the driveway is right up against the neighbor's house, because they're like 6 inches off the line. You know how these were built back in the day. And then my house is right on the driveway. And so you can see it was tucked way back in the corner. And, you know, not that I'd be driving cars into it or anything, but originally it was meant for cars or horses and buggies or something, I'm not sure. You know, I'm not even sure if you put it in the middle of the backyard, if you'd be able to turn any sort of vehicle. But I just, you know, I just want to be able to have a place for my tenants. I think the upstairs one is going on 3 or 4 years, and downstairs ones are now, I think, been there 4 years. Make it livable. I mean, I think they're nice apartments. And my downstairs tenants have their bikes in one of the bedrooms. Which I know is not talking about the timeline.
Mary and Scott, remind me, wasn't there a time when you could drop off your zoning application at City Hall in the basement and bring your checkbook? Pay right there?
Yes, there was a time. Yes, there was a time, but at that time, a lot of folks would show up with their application plans and their check and be told, oops, sorry, you guys signed the.
Yeah.
So that they were turned away and then came back again, and hopefully not making that. And that's what the fee isn't triggered in Open Go, right? I mean, zoning permits have a dozen different machinations. So staff needs to actually look at it, figure out what it is, and then send you the bill.
And
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. No, that's the question.
and I mean, it was honestly, it was like a little cumbersome, because, you know, none of the emails said, you know, here's your fee, like you have to click through, which and log in and click through and everything. And it says some of them I think say, if you want to pay by check, contact us. And I'm just a check person. I mean,
I was just reading them.
And I didn't want to leave, even though it was June 10th. I didn't want to leave, we were having trouble with our mail in that neighborhood. And I mean, it literally sat there for a few days, like sticking out of my mailbox. Because if I'm not getting mail or there's no mailman that day, they don't take it. And for some reason, I don't know if you've noticed, there's not a lot of mailboxes around. There's only one in my neighborhood, and it's on the opposite side of the street by New England Federal Credit Union, so it's really awkward. But I just didn't want to leave a check hanging out of a mailbox. I mean, you know, you guys know what's going on in the world these days.
Can I ask a question about timing? So, why did you wait until April to file the application? Is it just you weren't gonna build the shed until the summer? Is that what happened, or?
Well, so Scott was very helpful, and I was talking to him quite a bit. And all the zoning rules were changing. There was the sort of like the push to get people to build ADUs and things like that. So at first I thought I could build an ADU, and I was doing a lot of research all winter on that, trying to figure out if I could afford it, could I get a prefab from Sweden or this place in Canada, you know, just really talking with my
Right,
builder
yeah, I
guy.
understand.
And then Scott was like, and then I was like, well, no, maybe I can't do that, but maybe I can do like an artist studio and have, you know, heat and a sink, maybe a toilet. And so Scott and I were going back and forth, it was very helpful. And then I think it was sometime in April. And the reason I was really wanting to at least, you know, do an ADU is because I used to property manage a building on Buell Street. And I wanted to create a living room on the second floor apartment, create a living room from the porch. And this is quite some time ago, pre-2017. And I was not able to increase the living space because the parking was non-conforming. There was no way I could make it conforming. So I couldn't do that project. And so then now I'm like, all right, I wanna be able to do something in the future in case the rules ever change again. Cause I ended up not buying that building, you know, and so I just didn't wanna lose any ability to create an ADU if there was one. But then we talked, I think it was in April, I remember lying on the couch. And it was a cloudy day. And then Scott was like, oh, wait, no, you can't do an ADU, you don't have enough square footage. I only have 180 square feet, and since I can't go up, which was another thing we had discussed earlier. Oh, you don't have 350 square feet, you only have 180, you can't do an ADU. So then I was in only shed land. You know, there's nothing else I could do. I mean, I suppose I could still try and put a sink or something in there. But I figured out that financially, it doesn't make sense to build an artist studio. I couldn't charge enough to justify the costs that would to insulate and heat and, you know, starving artists.
Okay. Any more questions from the board for the applicant?
I have one more question, not for the applicant, for staff. So I know in the side setbacks that this doesn't meet the 10% lot width. What is the average of the two adjacent lots? Is that, I didn't see it in the report. But I know sometimes, like especially in those like historic neighborhoods, the neighboring setbacks can be quite narrow as well. So I'm just curious if that's more permissive, barring the lot coverage and everything else.
I don't believe it was.
Okay.
It's less than the 5.
We talked about that, like the many times we talked about it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear him and I can't hear you.
So I think we talked about what the setback would be and whether that would benefit you. Doing the average of neighbors versus 5 feet.
What's that 5 feet?
I don't recall that at all.
At first sight, it's just 10%, right? Which I don't think there's a minimum of 5 feet on the side. It's a 34, I think, it was in the drawing. Yeah, 37. 37.
I mean, the shed actually helps the neighbor's privacy.
I don't have it exactly based on the assessor's tax database. It notes it at 37.5 feet, so 10% of that would be 3.7.
Yeah.
The proposal, I believe, for side yard setback was
12. So one, yeah, so one kind of things like, yeah. That's why I was just curious about the side, whether it was less, because there are some pretty narrow lots with pretty small setbacks, so I was just curious. That was one percent. I think it would still, regardless, right, this would still be non-permitted because there's now no non-conforming structure and it's over the lot coverage requirements. So even if that were the case, but I was just curious for.
Can I say one more thing? So, and two, because of the way it was worded twice, your fee is available for payment. And the first one was the May 13th, and then the next one was quite some time later. There just wasn't like a feeling, much less a statement of any, like, hey, get this in. And it was just a crazy, crazy time for me. Obviously it doesn't belong here, but then at the very end, it was kind of like, oh, you didn't pay it within a few days. I mean, nobody had even said, got 3 days, 7 days, 22 days, 49 days, how many ever days, so it's just kind of like little.
The ordinance does say that your application is not complete until you.
What's that?
The ordinance does say the application is not complete until you file your fee. So I understand, and I know staff is very helpful. I know you may have wanted them to tell you exactly what you had to do. But there's also information in the ordinance that tells you how to file properly, including that the fee has to be paid for your application. So there are multiple.
But that would have been impossible.
Multiple places for you. Well, maybe, we'll discuss that. It wouldn't have been, you could have said, I need to file this fee by this date. Can you make sure you process this in time so that I can pay? I understand you didn't know at that time. I'm just saying there are alternate ways to get there. Just the staff.
What section are you specifically reading for the fee?
It's read 22.4 application forms.
AJ, we have
Kim's
city attorney
Kim's already-
sitting on Zoom with their hand.
Yes, Kim.
Good evening, all. I just actually had a question for Attorney Hebler, if that's okay. I've heard her acknowledge that she's aware of the application fee needs to be paid to be complete, and I just heard some of Jeff's questions, but just along that, just for the record, whether you ever asked staff about the application fee and the deadline to pay that?
Did I ever ask what the fee was and what the deadline was?
Yes.
No.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else online want to speak on this application?
See any hands raised, AJ?
All right. Well, we have some things to deliberate. So with that, I'll close the public hearing on this.
Okay, so I can leave.
You can hang out, but we're done with the public hearing. You can observe our deliberations on it if you'd like.
Gotta get my kid from the Saturday.
Okay, that's good. You can call staff tomorrow and find out our decision.
All right.
So with that, there's nothing else on our agenda for public hearing. I'll close the public hearing.
Recording stop.